is my review of that time I got reincarnated as a slime. Okay, so this episode showcases Rimuru actually coming up with a plan to actually stop Demon Lord Clayman and actually to stop his army before they advance. He does figure out how to do it in this episode. So, it starts off with Rimuru weighing his options about what he can actually do. Rimuru for the most part is curious about why Clayman would actually assemble Walpurgis if he was playing, and comes to the conclusion that Walpurgis is likely to just keep the other Demon Lords occupied so that Clayman can fulfill his plan without anybody interfering. At which point he will actually ascend as a Demon Lord, and when he wonders if there's actually enough souls at Eurazania for him to actually ascend, Raphael does confirm that there's actually a 73% chance he would succeed. At which point Rimuru realizes he needs a strategy to actually get some armies there, and concludes that he will try to save the entire kingdom of Eurazania with everybody else's help. So with that, he actually lays out a map of the entire world, but he can't for the life of him, he can't actually figure out a good way to get everybody there on foot. Obviously it's a several-day journey. It took 3 days, and they only have 2 days to get there. So it's a 3-day journey, and they have to figure out how to do that in 2 days. So obviously Rimuru is scratching his head trying to figure out what he can actually do. And then he wonders if he can actually use teleportation magic to bring everybody there. But Shuna actually voices her concerns with that, pointing out that teleportation magic is very dangerous, apparently. So Rimuru has successfully perfected teleportation magic for the most part, but he does only for like teleporting small groups and people who are actually able to defend themselves with magic. So it can only really be used for supplies. However, Raphael actually offers a solution and then gives an in-depth look of how transportation magic actually works. So, according to Raphael, the way transportation magic actually works is that it can take people from one place to the other, but there's an in-between space when they're not quite well existing, that organic matter can actually break down, and that's why it's a little bit dangerous. But Raphael does offer an alternative solution, pointing out that if Imagine or somebody else with a high magical count is able to actually create a barrier to protect themselves, or they're otherwise an inorganic being, like in the case of Rimuru, who's literally just a slime and doesn't really have anything vital that can actually get injured, then Raphael proposes that transportation magic could actually work. And when Rimuru asks her if it's possible for her to develop a technique that would enable him to transport everybody safely, she concludes that she's already done it. And Rimuru is very proud of Raphael for being so helpful, and then proceeds to explain how he developed the skill, even though he admits to himself that he actually is just stealing credit for Raphael for doing it. And concludes that with this new skill, he should be able to safely transport an entire army to Eurazania and actually defend them. And with that, it then proceeds to beg the question about how we can actually deal with Clayman. And at which point Shion actually provides a somewhat suggestion where she points out that maybe they could actually just go in, blitz attack them, and take everybody out. And while Rimuru objects to the latter half of that, he does point out that the idea of actually sneaking into Walpurgis would throw Clayman through a loop, since he wouldn't be able to prepare for that. And then asks Ramiris if it's possible for him to actually attend Walpurgis himself. And she does confirm that it is possible, but also points out that Rimuru could only take 2 people with him, since for reasons that are undisclosed. She points out that that they're only allowed to actually take 2 people during an incident, and that's the only thing she actually says about that. At which point Rimuru proceeds to mull over his options about who to actually take, and at which point Diablo actually volunteers, but both Rimuru and Shion point out that he's actually already volunteered to do the mission with the Kingdom of Falmouth, and that he actually can't come with. So he decides to actually just actually continue with that. And obviously Veldora offers as well, but Rimuru points out that Veldora actually needs to stay put as well, since he actually needs to keep the town safe on the off chance something bad happens. At which point it's kind of revealed that Veldora wasn't really paying attention. And points out, and Rimuru then points, but then that does beg the question of who Rimuru should pick, since obviously it's going to be very dangerous to walk into Walpurgis with only like 2 people, and realizes he needs to actually bring some people to defend him. And then wonders who would actually be well suited for the task. At which point Shion gets into a crouching position over Rimuru's slime form and just looks him in the eye. And it's just this really cute scene where she just effectively creates a box around Rimuru using her body and just then stares at him upside down. It's really funny and really cute, and I do kind of like it. But but it is this cute little gesture that makes Rimuru realize that he actually does need to bring Shion, since obviously A, she has a personal vendetta against Claimant and would want to come with, and B, he realizes that she would actually throw a fit. From personal experience, he knows that she'll throw a fit if she doesn't come with. So, for those reasons, he decides to invite Ranga and Shion to come with. At which point, Veldora once again points out his concerns about how he's not able to actually come with Rimuru, but Rimuru reassures him that he actually does have an ace in the hole in case that will enable Veldora to come anyway. Explaining that he actually has a skill that will enable him to summon Veldora to his current position. And Veldora is actually pretty proud about that. But at which point where he's hoping that actually throwing Claimant through a loop would actually cause Claimant to actually hypothetically call Rimuru out for hiding behind one of the great dragons, and both Shion and Veldora take offense to that and point out that Claimant actually does need to pay now, but Diablo does point out that Rimuru is only speaking hypothetically and that didn't actually happen. And Diablo, again, while he does voice that he does want to go, but decides again to just kind of support Shion and his superior secretary and just make sure she can do the best job she can while just kind of staying behind and helping out there. So with that, it's then decided who Rimuru is going with, but Rimuru then points out that she actually wants Veldora to come with. Since obviously Veldora and her have become kind of close, and to the point where she's actually started calling him Master, funnily enough. And Rimuru does point out when that does wonder out loud when that actually started happening, but he does point out that he's going to be using a special skill to summon Veldora. It leaves a follower spot opening for Rimuru to bring somebody. At which point Rimuru asks if Trainee can come with. And while Rimuru does start to deny it, both Trainee and Tria plead in earnest for Rimuru to actually let them come along and let Trainee go with. So Rimuru eventually relents and decides that would actually be the best thing, and both Trainee and Rimuru are over the moon about that decision. But in case they prepare to go the next morning and prepare to get ready to actually go and head off the forces led by Yasma. At which point we actually meet 2 characters. So it's at this point where we meet Father Midray and his subordinate Hermes, who are revealed to be one of Milim's Dragon Faithful, and through them and their interaction with Yamza, we actually find out that they don't particularly care for Yamza, and for good reason. So, as I explained, they don't really like the idea of having to work under Yamza and having to support him in his war. Especially since they point out, they feel like Milim is actually being manipulated a little bit, but they really can't do much about it, since even though they do point out that they do very much feel like Claimant is actually manipulating her and actually is forcing her to actually create orders, even though and that is implied to be what's happening. But Midray actually does voice his anger about how he feels like Milim is actually being forced to do things she doesn't want to do. With Hermes just remarking that he looks a lot like a melon when he gets angry, and he does. But again, they can't really voice their concerns about it, since they do have their reasons for not liking Yamza, mainly that his forces effectively ate all of their food, just showed up, ate all of their food, And when they point out that they don't really have much food to spare for them, Yamza then proceeds to smash an apple in Midrei's face and tell him that cleaning up Milim's mess is what his top priority should be, and that he should be willing to feed the soldiers as much as they need until they get their fill. And when Hermes objects, Yamza slices his arm off, and Midrei then, in an effort to keep Yamza from killing Hermes, then proceeds to kick him into a pillar, apologize on his behalf, and then once Yamza is gone, heal his arm and put it back. So yeah, from this little scene we actually find out that they do not care for Yamza, like, at all. But they do point out that they really have no choice, or because they can't really take Yamza to fight it anyway. So, but we do find out that Yamza apparently has a trick up his sleeve through these two. And Hermes even senses that he's not actually playing out his full deck yet. So they do conclude that he probably has an ace in the hole in case something actually happens. And at which point Midrei actually voices his anger again, pointing out that he feels like going in half-cocked is kind of a bad idea, especially if they're not going all out. But then he also voices the concerns about how they haven't seen Milim in a while and wonders what's keeping her. And we know what's keeping her. Obviously she's been brainwashed by Clayman. Obviously we're not going to see her for a while, at least until Clayman is actually defeated. So yeah, she's been brainwashed by Clayman, hence why she hasn't been in the season like at all, like barely, like for like 2 seconds, and then that's it. That was her entire appearance in the entire season up until this point. But in case with that, but Rimuru then proceeds to wonder how he's going to actually transport and defend everybody. At which point, Raphael actually points out the obvious, which is that he can actually transport the refugees to Tempest from Eurazania to actually save them and keep them out of harm's way of the armies. And he does and Rimuru kind of has a no duh moment, realizing that he only realized now that that his armies aren't the only people he can actually transport. So, with Phobio's help, he does set up several refugee camps around Tempest to actually store all the refugees in, so that they can actually live there until they've successfully fought the war and can actually return them home. And with Phobio's help, does succeed in getting all the refugees there by roughly the next morning. So he managed to get them there all day, throughout the entire day and into the night. And they finish up like a day before Clayman is actually supposed to show up with his armies. So yeah, with that, they actually do manage to clean up, at which point Phobio then voices his concerns about how Rimuru doesn't seem to look tired at all, even though they've been doing this for like a day. And while we know the answer is that Rimuru doesn't get tired because he's a slime, he can just revitalize himself. He does point out that's because he's the leader of Tempest, though Phobio doesn't really believe that. But Rimuru tells him to stop screwing around and asking pointless questions, and tells them that they actually do have a lot more work to do before they actually get ready. And Phobio agrees, and they go back to Tempest to train their armies. At which point it's revealed that Rimuru has actually raised an entire army of hobgoblins, ogres, of orcs, and a bunch of other miscellaneous monsters that he just has in Tempest, and has actually raised an army of roughly 20,000, which is a pretty impressive army. And meanwhile, Shion and her other undead companions, which Rimuru fittingly calls the Yamagari, they're actually there to actually keep Tempest safe from invaders in case something else happens. So with that, Rimuru does explain to them what's actually going to happen and how they're actually going to be going to war. And then proceeds to explain how they actually do need to be careful, and pointing out that Clayman's armies are likely very, very slippery, and that they actually do need to keep an eye on what their opponent, so that they don't actually fall in battle. And everybody then proceeds to cheer and actually give their gratification for Rimuru with the Beastketeers, Benimaru, and a couple others pointing out that they actually will never forget everything that Rimuru has done for them, and that they are going to continue to support Rimuru when they get back. And with that, Rimuru then proceeds to create a giant teleportation spell, which then transports the entire army of 20,000 right into Eurazania. And then he remarks once they're gone to keep safe, and hopefully he'll see them again. So, yeah, with that, Rimuru is now prepared to actually go to war against Clayman and his armies, and I'm curious to see how this is actually going to play out. I'm curious to see how this is actually going to play out. Obviously, Clayman doesn't think very highly of Rimuru. Case in point, he's been trying several times to try and wipe Rimuru off the face of the earth, thinking that Rimuru can't actually handle it. But he doesn't think very highly of Rimuru. So I'm wondering how he's going to react when he sees Rimuru not only see through his entire plan, but actually stop it full force with both an army of his own and his own personal appearance at Walpurgis. I'm curious to see how Clayman is going to react to that, since obviously Rimuru has since deduced his plan and is actually planning to just show up at Walpurgis while his armies deal with Clayman's. So, yeah, that's going to be very interesting to see going forward. Obviously, Clayman likely wasn't suspecting that Rimuru would actually show up. So it's possible that Clayman may completely freak out when he sees that Rimuru is there. So who knows? I mean, granted, Clayman seems like the kind of guy who would keep his chill under any situation, except when he's really, really pissed. But it does seem. I'm curious to see how he would actually react when he sees Rimuru show up at Walpurgis, even though Rimuru had no idea Walpurgis was even a thing up until recently. So I'm interested to see how that's going to happen. But in any case, that's my review of that time I got reincarnated as a slime. What did you guys think? Let's get a discussion going in the comment section down below, or over on my Discord server, link in the description. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, be sure to follow me on Twitter in the description below. Be sure to check out my Patreon in the description below as well. It's only a couple bucks a month. It does help support me, and you guys get access to a bunch of cool perks that I'm always saying thanks. So be sure to check those out in the description below as well. And also be sure to what else? Be sure to check out my Twitch down in the description below as well. It does help support me because you guys can actually go see a live stream from me every 2:30 Eastern Standard Time every Sunday, so be sure to go check those out. And also, finally, if you want to see more content from me in addition to that, then be sure to check out the videos linked in the end screen. The top video is the most recent video. It may or may not be this one. Whereas the bottom video is the video recommended to you based on what you've already seen from me. So, if you want to try something new or see more of what you like, then be sure to check both of those videos out. But, regardless of whether or not you do any or all of those things, thank you guys so much for watching. And until next time, we'll see you guys in the next video. Peace!